So you went through COVID, right? I went through COVID. The one thing about COVID is it was a huge interruption to our usual routine, right? And for some of us during that time, we started to, we got a little itchy to do something big, do something different, do something other than how life had been going. And that is what a good pattern interruption is going to do for you. Well, my guest today took two areas of her expertise and her interests, and she started a foundation that combined the two. Dr. Orazie Cook created Praline's Backyard Foundation. Now, Praline is her pet. It's her puppy, and is beautiful puppy on all of my artwork for today's podcast. So wherever you get your podcast, I'd go back and look at that thumbnail because it's such a cute picture of Dr. Cook and her puppy. But Praline is, the love of Dr. Cook's life in many ways, right? So she took this interest and she married it up with this other thing. So Dr. Cook worked for decades in public health and also did a lot of volunteering for domestic violence. And one of the areas of need that she kept seeing show up is that the 48%, this is a huge number of the reported number, right? So we can also anticipate it's probably a bigger number than this. 48% of women in domestic violence situations choose to delay their leaving because they don't know what to do with their pets. They don't know what to do about it. They're not going to leave them with the abuser, and they don't know if they can take them with them to a safe, sheltered space before they can figure out what they're going to do with the next right thing in their life. And so Dr. Cook just saw a nice, overlap here. Like, why are we not bridging this gap? I love my pets. I also, am volunteering in these, organizations that help people who are going through domestic violence find a safer place to be in their life and move on and heal from those experiences. I want to somehow create a space where we can help people with pets to also leave right away and get the help that they need, but not worry what's going to happen with their pets. So you will not believe, and she didn't, honestly, she shares this with us, you will not believe where this organization went. It started just from these ideas and doing a little side hustle with her dog walking business of helping people foster pets for women that are leaving domestic abuse relationships. And it has become something that's at a national level at this point. So please keep listening. Welcome. This is Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving, a podcast that teaches women in midlife to unapologetically stop silencing their dreams and start designing the lives they want to live in. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie, and as a clinical psychologist of the last 2 decades and a twice-divorced single mother myself, I not only know how hard it can feel heading into midlife, I am living it right here with you. I have taken all the many failed attempts and lessons learned in my own life and combine it with my extensive clinical experience to give you the tools you need to make midlife the best time in your life. No joke. So let's get started. I'm starting today's podcast with a trigger warning. Today's podcast has material about domestic abuse, domestic violence, and finding the resources that you need to get out of domestic abuse relationships. It also has information that is valuable to all of my listenership. But if you are somebody who is in a situation like this might be a podcast you want to listen to, but I want to make sure that you're in the headspace that you can do that. So if you're driving to work, this probably is the time to press pause, and you might want to come back to this podcast later. But I do hope that you listen, because there is a lot of material today that we're going to be talking about that might be useful for you and might finally get you to take the next right step in your life. And for those of you who have been through domestic abuse, it's hard to listen to this material and the statistics around it. So I like to give you the heads up before you decide whether or not today's podcast is a podcast for you. Well, welcome back, everybody, to Midlife Crisis, to a Centered Life Thriving. I have a really fun guest with us today. Her name is Dr. Orazie Cook, and I'm just going to introduce you with her bio, and then we will ask her our quintessential question, which is, what is your story? What brought you here? So Dr. Orazie Cook is the founder and executive director of Praline's Backyard Foundation. And she has a compelling story to share here. So she's experienced challenges firsthand as a volunteer at domestic violence shelters and the local Humane Society. And having lived that experience with domestic violence and understanding the deep emotional bonds that exist between survivors and their pets, she decided to go on the personal journey of putting together Praline's Backyard Foundation. And this is a foundation where they tirelessly work to remove the barriers for survivors in order for them to seek safety for themselves and not worry about their pets and possibly even be able to bring their pets with them. So welcome, Dr. Cook. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. So as I alluded, my first question to all the guests is, tell us your story. Tell us about yourself and what brought you here.
Okay. Well, this story is a long, drawn out one. Honestly, I really struggle sometimes with telling the story. So I'll tell it from the sense of I'm from Atlanta. I'm born and raised in Atlanta. I started on a path of public health with the dream of working at CDC. And so I have a master's in public health, a doctorate in public health, and I had the ultimate dream of job of working at CDC as well. And I left that job to really pursue, I have a dog walking business and the foundation. And that came about because I had years of volunteering. I always had my mom instilled in us the need for volunteer. Always give back your time to the community. And we always did that growing up. And so when I was in college, I volunteered at a crisis line. When I finished college, I went on to volunteer at a domestic violence shelter, and I encountered survivors would go back to the home where their abuser was because they wanted to get their pet. I didn't have space or knowledge of how to fix that, but I was like, that shouldn't be the reason, right? Like, I just knew that there was something wrong with that, but I didn't have space to say, y'all need to do this, or this is the solution for that. I just had that experience. And I went on some from the domestic violence shelter, the Humane Society. And I would see a similar story in a sense of survivors would come and relinquish ownership of their pet because that's responsible ownership, responsible parenting of a pet.
Yeah.
Because they went into a moving situation that did not allow for pets. But I didn't think that still wasn't good. I mean, it was good from the point of being responsible, but not good from the point of that's not what you really wanted to do. But you were in this friend's housing phase and there was no other option for you. There was no other option with that. So Praline's Backyard Foundation was born out of knowing that was a need and a barrier for survivors. Because I don't want a survivor to ever stay with an abuser because of due to lack of housing for their pet, and I don't want you to give up ownership of your pet because of a situation. And so the foundation will pay for 7 days of immediate housing at a pet boarding facility for a survivor to give them that space to see what they're going to do, what's going on with them. And they will provide up to 6 months of foster support for that survivor's pet. Thinking in 6 months, they'll be in a place where they have stable housing. So they can be reunited with their pet. It is never the intention for the survivor not to get their pet back. There is no foster bill here.
No.
Foster pet, I'm just so thankful that I had the opportunity, the space, and the resources to start this and the support from people just like your audience.
Thank you and welcome. Tell us, what do you want my listeners to know about your organization, even about, the bigger issue, the bigger public health issue of domestic violence, which did get worse during COVID. And, why Praline's Backyard Foundation. It's such a unique way to help women through this, but I can see why it's such a big barrier.
Oh, it definitely is. And in the sense of only 48% of women delay leaving an abusive relationship due to lack of housing for their pets.
That is crazy. 48%. Wow. Yes, that's a big number.
And don't delay. You're right. If you need to leave today. There's no delay.
Yeah. No delay.
Sure you do leave. This is a safety net that's available for you when you do leave. Because when I tell people all the time, one thing I want your audience to do, follow Praline's Backyard Foundation, share our content to help educate 10 million people. Our goal is to educate 10 million people of the barriers survivors with pets experience. That 10 million represents the 10 million people each year that experience domestic violence. And that's the documented number. I told people, we know documented numbers are not the actual numbers. We know it's much larger than that.
It's a bigger number than that. Yeah, that's why I think that's so heavy to me, that 48% delay. Yeah.
Yes. And then less than 20% of less than 20% of domestic violence shelters are pet friendly, which means the population of survivors who would need to enter into a shelter, they don't have the resources to support them. And so Praline's Backyard Foundation is bridging the gap of that resource. And granted, we can't cover the 80% that's lacking, right? Well, we can cover a little bit that's in there to support survivors. And we're able to do that through awesome partnerships with pet boarding facilities and awesome people who decide to be a foster. Because, and I believe in, like, as I mentioned, I have over 20 degree in public health, working within government. And we spend money in crazy ways.
Right.
And so my thing is, like, every day a pet boarding facility has open space to house a survivor's pet, right? Every day a survivor struggles with leaving an abuser. Why can't we connect that survivor's pet with a boarding facility that has an opening?
Exactly.
So I believe in partnership. I believe many hands make light work.
Yes.
And so I like how we can really garner resources and use money wisely.
Yes.
And so it's like everyone is a benefit. It benefits the pet boarding facility. They can even donate the space, just donate the space, discount the space, get the PR out of the space and say we are partnered with Praline's Backyard Foundation to support domestic violence survivors when leaving an abuse. That is a PR beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I'm all about it. I believe in corporate responsibilities. I believe I want to give money. Like, even as like I mentioned, I have a dog walking business. 10% of our profit goes to the foundation because I believe I'm letting my clients know this is how your money is going. In addition to paying a living wage to my staff, my team, we're also giving back to the community because we can all do that.
Of course.
I know there's opportunity to apply for grants, but I believe in grassroots work. We can do this as a society. I don't need the government to do this. We as individual people can make a difference in whatever spectrum we want to do that in. Whether I made the decision to work with pets and domestic violence survivors, you can make the decision to work in homelessness, make the decision to work in drug and recovery. Everyone has a different interest.
Yes.
Work in your and give back in that way.
Yeah. And so I'll ask you the question then, what power do you think that has for women in particular in midlife who are, uncomfortable, disappointed, maybe resentful that they checked all the right boxes, but life doesn't feel great for them? What do you think it is about this, like a sign contributing to something bigger than you that is so valuable and so important?
Because it allows you to not focus on yourself. It just allows you to really see like your impact. And this is something that I learned as I delved into my business and with the foundation. People say, "Oh yeah, growing up, like people always, I was always have dogs. I used to you get a picture of me with dogs all over me as a child as I was growing up." And when I start telling people that I have this dog walking business, it's like, "Oh yeah, I saw you doing dog walking more than I ever saw you working at CDC." I was like, why didn't you ever tell me that? I never saw that in myself, right? Because I had this vision of what I was supposed to do, right? But then when you get to a point in your life, but like we say midlife, it's like, I don't want to do what I was supposed to do anymore. I want to do what I want to do, what brings me passion and what brings me joy. And I can even see it in myself. Like when I'm playing with dogs or like even when I'm picking up poop, it's like, you have to do this, being outside, enjoying the fresh air, just being in nature and just seeing the joy of my dog or other people's dogs. It's just like, that's beautiful to me. And then,
it is
beautiful.
beautiful.
As part of the foundation, I get to make sure a survivor doesn't leave their pet with an abuser and how much that means to them. And it's just like, that's what I live for. Like, I want to, because I know how much my pet means to me. I don't want anyone to be separated from their pet and then to leave them with an abuser. No. So, and I'm delving into my business, into the foundation. Just look at yourself and see where your passion, what makes you smile. Like when you think about whatever that is you do, you may not even get paid for it right now, but you realize that is what you enjoy reading a book. Okay. Maybe you should write a book. So it's like different things that you find joy in. And because honestly, I was at a point where financially I could have some leeway in that. And then it was like, I have space to like let me see, what is it that I really want to do? Or what really brings me joy at this point? And then delve into it. And then even
Yeah.
if it's like, and the money will come. And something's not about the money, it's about the joy. Like the
Yeah,
moment I left CBC,
I'm big on that. Like, I think you're onto something there, because what you're talking about is, choosing something that brings, an elevated state of emotion to your life that
yeah,
is just for you. And yet, if you're connecting it to something that's a bigger cause like that, it also plays in to a lot of the programming and conditioning that we've been given, which is like, we're here for service, and we're, women are caretakers and that kind of thing. And I think that when I, as a clinical psychologist, as I start to talk to coaching clients and even my clinical clients and counseling about this idea of self-care, they bristle a little bit. Women in particular will bristle, but anybody that's in a caretaking role kind of bristles, like, that's selfish. That's what you do that's luxury. That's what you do if you only have the time to do it. I don't have that kind of time. And my big, public service announcement is no, actually, if you don't take care of the person that's taking care of all the things you take care of also diminish. And you don't want to put out a diminished product into the world. So the only real choice you have is to take care of you first, so you can take care of all those things. But I like how you're putting this together. It's like, start with something like, what's my interest? Do I like reading? Maybe I'd like writing. Do I, like pets? Maybe there's some way to hook that to something that's bigger than me that also helps other people that like pets, but are in a place where they're not able to necessarily keep their pets if they take care of themselves at this point. And so I love it. It's like you're using that the joy part of it as a big guiding force. So it really is self-reinforcing that it's self-care. But at the same time, it's also part of, that bigger piece that I think people bristle about when they think about self-care, because they think they're going to be going away from doing things that better the world and are generative and leave a legacy behind, that kind of thing.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Beautiful. Ooh, I love that. Is there anything in particular you, on this journey have noticed that, it surprised you as part of this for you?
domestic violence survivors as a side gig. So and I just started sharing the story on social media, and it just kind of propelled.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't really been a social media person. Like I'm a little older than some people, and so I was on Facebook when it first started, and for like a year, and that was it, and I was not on. And so, but in the midst of COVID, I got back on social media because nothing else to do. Let me just get on social media, and then I just started sharing my story, just sharing what we were doing as a business, and that people were like, oh, they were just like, it really resonated with a lot of people, and I knew it resonated with my community in Atlanta because community that I work in, right? But then it just spiraled, and just people just started telling me their stories, and it's like people started saying, "Oh, you should do this, you should get on top of it, you should do this," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" Like I was just doing it as a side thing, but then I established a nonprofit. And that increased the donations of people giving to the foundation, being a foundation at that point. And it was like, oh, okay, then I'll do this because you all have told me it's a need, and I know it's a need, but on a broader scale because I was only focused on Atlanta. And so it's like I can help because I can call up a pet boarding facility in Minnesota and say I have a survivor in your area. Are you willing to house a survivor's pet? At discounted rate, or we'll just pay it as we look while we look for a pet foster for longer term. I'll say because it's just still money, right? And I'll say, well, we'll do it in partnership, we'll donate it, however the situation works out. But it's just like, oh, so I can do that. I can connect, again, like I mentioned, a survivor's pet and a survivor that needs housing with a boarding facility that has space, which is, there's not
That's
beautiful. There's no hookup of boarding facilities anywhere. There's room in the end
there's
for
room.
your dog.
I mean, I had never really thought about that. That's such an obvious connection, though. Like if you've got government will pay money for lots of different things. And could we get them to sponsor some of these, spaces in foster that are there so that these women don't worry about leaving and taking care of themselves? And 6 months is such a generous amount of time. it can seem like not enough time, maybe if you're scared about starting your entire life over.
Yeah.
And yet it really is a generous amount of time. And I'm sure that once, plugged into your services, it's not like somebody would say, if you can't get into a place on your own in 7 months, then you're done. Then we can't help you. Like, I'm sure there's ways even
No,
around that
we
where
worked
you
in
can
I haven't
budge
had
that.
anyone go over the 6 months, maybe up into the line, but because also it's, and I've learned a lot because I've not looked into housing in a lot of different places. Like I learned, like
Yeah.
California has like stipulations on housing. Like people can move into a housing, but you have to get a fecal test for your dog.
Oh,
Get all
wow.
kinds of like extra stuff. And also there's pet rent. And so it's finding a place that you can afford that takes dogs and that you can meet these other these other fees that
Mm-hmm.
goes along with having a dog or
Mm-hmm.
having a pet. And so it's like, okay, so yeah, so it can be cost prohibitive in certain places to have a pet and to be a
Yeah.
survivor and not be able to reach that. So really finding housing is probably difficult sometimes. But
Is there some
yeah,
benefit to your national coverage there that, like, you might also be able to help these women see other places in the United States that might better serve them to live during, a
yeah,
time where they're separating from an abusive partner?
we have not participated in a cross state, I guess transition or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I guess something we could help in later on. But essentially, we stay within a 100-mile radius of the survivor because of mileage and just traveling of the pet.
Yes.
But yeah, it definitely is
I
and I'm
mean,
not opposed
there's
to
so
being
many
that
ins
way.
and outs to that, I am sure. Now that I'm thinking about it, like that's taking it on at a national level is like quite heroic, honestly. And I love that part of that journey for you was community really spurred that for you. Like you
Oh
might
yeah,
not have kind of pushed yourself had you not put yourself out there and said, this is something I'm kind of doing on the side, and then gotten that kind of support and interest that you heard once you put it out there.
yeah. And then it was like the work would be the same. Like
Mm-hmm.
it would be, it's no different work. Like I can't say that I get a lot of calls from Georgia because I'm here and people know it in Georgia, but it's like anywhere. It was like, okay, so yeah, like on average, we get about 50 calls, or I was say more than 50 calls, but none of housing 50 pets a month in some capacity.
Yeah.
That's sustainable for us based upon our donations and everything, which is great, and I'm thankful for that. But as we continue to raise awareness, I hope people will know us. Know that we exist, and then they will share with other people, and people that need us will reach out to us. And then
Yeah.
we work in partnership with domestic violence shelters that do house pets, other resources. There are other organizations that are not necessarily just like Praline's Backyard, but
Mm-hmm.
similar in some capacity in terms of supporting survivors with pets. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So the final question that I ask on my podcast, and it may be related to what you do with Praline's Backyard Foundation, it might just be your own personal advice to women in midlife. But when women in midlife kind of find that they're feeling stuck, like they wake up and they know that what is in their life isn't going to be enough for them, and they have no idea what to do for that next step, what's your personal advice to them?
Well, I can just say what really for me, what worked for me, and that is just taking space to just really like go away, like get away from your surroundings and really take
Yeah.
time for yourself. And so I've made
Okay.
a commitment to myself that once a quarter I go somewhere just to get away from the family. Someone's pulling on me, like take self care, like really
Yes.
take away, give yourself space for that, and then really process what you want to do, what you want your life to look like, what you want
Right.
to look like, not like your kids, your spouse, your partner, just what you want it to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can come along for the ride, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe
So,
not. Yep,
yeah,
exactly. No, I think
yeah.
that's really wise because, in the muck of it, sometimes we can't get that perspective and look at the bigger picture and, just self-reflect, like what would be the next right step for me here. I talk about that principle of just do the next right thing. Like you don't need the 20-stage process of I'm stuck now and I want to be here and here's how it's going to look. Because, you and I both know we've had enough mileage to know it never works out that way. doesn't. Like we have all the best laid out plans and life happens in the midst of it. So really that next right step is all you need. But sometimes you can't even see that when you're feeling in that stuck space. So giving yourself time and space to just reflect is really powerful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just listened to I'm not really a TV person. I actually watched a show yesterday because it got my attention because I read this book a few years ago. This lady walked the Appalachian Trail. She wrote a book about her walking of the Appalachian. I can't remember the title of the book. But there's a movie now on Netflix about this lady that did like 51 miles of the Appalachian Trail.
Wow.
It's a fictional show. It reminded me of the book that was nonfiction. And it was like she was on the divorce. She did the Appalachian Trail and just all of them like thinking maybe I should walk the Appalachian Trail. Take a quick route. I was like, because I love nature, and it's like that would be really, really cool to do. And it's like, yeah, just taking some time because it just gives you perspective, just getting away from your normal life. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, honestly, not washing dishes is like Christmas sometimes.
It is. It is. But there is something really powerful about interrupting your usual pattern, right? Like if you're on the Appalachian Trail and you're walking, you're not washing dishes. You're not getting up and brushing your teeth in front of the same mirror every day. And something really powerful about breaking those patterns just like frees us up again to kind of tap into there's something bigger than just, my routine from day to day. And maybe that's why I'm feeling stuck because I can't seem to see outside of that routine right now.
Yeah, the busyness can keep you so busy if you don't have time to think. Like you don't have time
Exactly. It's a powerful, it's a powerful numbing agent, not unlike things like food and, drinking and over consumption of anything. Like when we are in our routines and we keep ourselves busy, well, then there is no time to see anything but the busy. And it would be hard to interrupt that and get unstuck per se in that moment. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Cook. We have really appreciated having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
And I love what you're doing. I hope my listeners too have really enjoyed hearing, maybe if you get some of that self-reflection time, there's something like this that you've been thinking about that you might just start to volunteer a little bit more with or noodle around. How might I incorporate that in my life? And that might be the next right step for you as well. And thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want my listeners to know about, like where they can find you, where they can find Praline's Backyard Foundation, anything like that to donate if they would like to do that?
Definitely. So definitely look us up on all the social media. It's Praline's Backyard everywhere. So definitely on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the social media networks. And if you live in Atlanta and this post before May 5th, register for our Pause for Domestic Violence is going to be an awesome day. It's all about your dogs. It's going to be an obstacle course, agility course, all kinds of activities to enjoy and bond with your dog. And it's $60 of each race ticket will go toward housing a survivor's pet. So definitely join us May 5th if you're in Atlanta. We would
awesome.
Definitely take the time to follow Praline's Backyard, share our content. And because I tell people, it doesn't cost you anything to like click that like button or to share.
No.
So one thing we can do, we can raise awareness, and it may come get in front of somebody who can donate $1 million or $10 million. And if you can donate $10 or $1, definitely do that as well. We appreciate your support. Definitely know your shares and like do a world of good.
They do. They always do. Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your space with me.
You're welcome. Well, that didn't disappoint, did it? That was amazing. And this organization is amazing. And I really feel honored to be able to showcase things like this on my podcast. Now, Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving is a podcast that talks about, a myriad of different issues that a woman in midlife, when she's feeling stuck, when she's transitioning, when she's noticing that life is disappointing and not living up to her expectations, might find some resources. Well, for some of these women, for some of us, why we're stuck at this point in our life is a much bigger issue. So I need to just name that if you are in a domestic violence situation, please get help. Please. I'm going to put up in the notes for today's podcast various organizations nationally that might be able to help you in figuring out how to get that help. But I just want to name that this is not a normal level of midlife crisis or an experience that any of us should have. So if you yourself are feeling scared to be in the relationship that you're in, walking on eggshells when you're home with a partner that is a volatile temper and has been verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually abusive to you in any way, please get the help that is out there for you. And please don't let your pets be something that holds you back. Praline's Backyard Foundation is here for you, and all of those links are in our notes as well today. Please just know that we're here for you to support you. Like, this is your life and it's your one and only life. And so if anything, I just want to say that it can get better and will get better. You have to start with just the next right step. And the next right step is often stepping out of that relationship. And that can be the scariest step of all. So let us champion you through that. Let us help you find the resources that you need. And let us be that safety net for you. Keep coming back to midlife crisis, to a centered life thriving, because we're here for you. And the little bits of resources and advice that are given on this podcast are all here to be part of the things that help you get by as you're starting your life over. Thank you for listening today. And if you know somebody who's in a situation like this might be the podcast that you might want to forward to them. They might need to hear a little bit about Praline's Backyard Foundation, and that might be the impetus that finally gets them to leave and be in a safer space in their life. Thank you all. Stay compassionately self-aware, and you too will find that centered life thriving. Because I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, I have to make sure at the end of each of these episodes that I give you the disclaimer that none of the material that I talk about in these podcasts is meant to replace any kind of therapy or formal medical or mental health treatment. And in fact, anything that I offer on my website, my coaching programs, any kind of psychoeducational materials that I release are not a replacement for that level of care. So just take that into account when you listen. This is information for you, and hopefully you find it of value, both as an educational tool and for your entertainment. And I also want to mention that if anyone you know is in a mental health crisis, needs additional help, I always include these 2 crisis resources. They're available to anybody. Pick up the phone and dial 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can always visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Additionally, there's actually a crisis text line. So if you're not somebody that likes to pick up the phone, text HOME, home, to 741-741 to the crisis text line. And you can find them online at crisistextline.org. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I hope that you like and follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe consider leaving me a review. It always helps me to keep this podcast relevant when I know what you want to hear about.